Spoiler alert, not the outcome I would have wanted for the swim, but in a way, this made the whole adventure even greater. Please don't just be a swim box ticker. Lists never interest me. The swims and the swim experiences do. For this episode, I give you my personal account of the what, the how, the who, the lessons learned of one of the greatest adventure swims of my career. Following our last episode with swim organiser Howard James of Open Water Africa, this is my commitment to you to bring you my account of the swim, regardless of the result. Lake Malawi. Welcome to the MYSWIM podcast. MYSWIM is every person's personal adventure in the water, whether it's learning to swim, wild swimming, channel swimming, winter swimming, another aquatic sport like water polo, synchronised swimming, triathlon, or something social with friends, the best kind. And everything in between, your happy place, your aquatic adventure. And together we can explore it. First, the what. Lake Malawi is known as the Calendar Lake, being 365 miles long and 52 miles at its widest point. It straddles the borders of Malawi, Mozambique and Tanzania, ranked as the fourth largest lake in the world by volume and the second deepest in Africa. It is said the lake has more species of fish than any other lake on the planet. Swimmers tackle the shortest crossing from Cape Ngogobe to Senegal Bay, the challenge of 24 kilometres with water temperatures ranging from 24 to 29 degrees Celsius, that's 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and air temperatures around 26 degrees Celsius, about 80 Fahrenheit, I believe. However, be prepared for the lake's formidable reputation, as you will see from my experiences, with strong south to north currents and swells earning it a place as one of the Stillwater 8 series. The why. My personal path that leads to swimming Lake Malawi was a long one. It could even be argued it started in the embers of the Channel Swim two-way attempt in 2016. As I got off the boat from the attempt, Howard James was waiting to greet me. I hadn't met Howard before that moment, and I was always impressed that he had stayed up to watch the swim tracker through the 2 days and then made the effort in the early hours of the morning to come to Dover and find me when we docked. I later found out what a great swimmer he was and had held the record for the earliest and latest swim of the English Channel, an achievement of extreme bravery to just say you will do it, but even greater to then deliver. Howard James and I became good friends, with a mutual respect of each other's achievements. So when Howard moved to South Africa and opened up Open Water Africa, I wanted to support him in any way I could, and followed with interest how his organisation evolved. Another good mutual friend through swimming was Michelle Macy, who I'd met during a small fun swim across the Bosphorus in Turkey. We had a lot of fun during this event, and I got to realise what a colossus she was in the swimming world, who still doesn't get the recognition her achievements in the number of challenging swims and the speed of the swims deserve. Michelle's relationship to the Malawi story is that she had developed, in conjunction with Nick Adams, another great swimmer, a list of swims known as the Stillwater 8, a list of freshwater swims that were to represent the lakes version of the Ocean 7. A personal view here. Although the lists help promote certain swims and give people target, I do feel that for many they've become a box-ticking exercise rather than having a passion about a swim that many have had when they first entered the world of marathon swimming. But one of the still water rates was Lake Malawi, and Michelle asked Howard to find a way to support swimmers to undertake the swim. Howard, being Howard, accepted the logistical challenges and set about facilitating the swim through a great guy with immense local and nautical knowledge called Walter Muggleton. Howard and I talked about the swim in passing at least 2 years before I eventually decided to swim, but I was hooked from the moment he described the adventure and the challenges he was having to get it off the ground. His most poignant comment was, "Mick, this is proper Africa. Not South Africa or a 5-star hotel setting." And at the time I imagined what he meant, and having now experienced it, I know what he meant, and he was so right. Having talked about the swim many times and postponed the swim a couple of times, I finally committed in February 2025 to do the swim that October. The how. With renewed vigour and purpose, I drafted my training plan with the aim to increase my weekly output by 10% each week until I was first completing an overall distance in a week of 25 kilometres, and then to peak at doing the overall distance over a weekend. This meant that approximately 12k on both the Saturday and Sunday back to back. I didn't get to this, but I did get to several 10k swims done, with most of my other swims being around the 2-hour long. And I felt comfortable that whatever I hadn't done physically, I could make up for mentally by toughing out the difference. My training time was split between Lidos, lakes, and my normal 3 times a week masters session in the pool, as well as gym work, mainly shoulders and core. My typical training diary, weekly and monthly training mileage are all in the show notes. The when and preparation. In parallel with the swim training was the admin preparation, finding flights and the logistics to get us from our Surrey home into the heart of Africa. We finally settled on the route out of Heathrow with a stopover of 4 hours in Ethiopia before continuing for a further 4 hours to Lilongwe in Malawi. Due to the extreme winds, June and August, and the rainy season of November to March, the swim organisation Open Water Africa only organise the swim windows during May and October each year. These 2 months are the most favourable for the wind and seasonal conditions for the swim. My take on it is May then becomes more favourable for the Southern Hemisphere based swimmers, and October is better for the Northern Hemisphere swimmers, founded on the long distance training needed to prepare for the swim. Unless a lot of training is done either indoors or in needlessly cold water, Lake Malawi is warm water, so my process of having a summer in the lakes and the Lidos seemed to work for me. Our personal itinerary for the swim in October ended up as we go out on the Friday the 17th. I got a 9 o'clock flight from Heathrow to Ethiopia, stopover, and then Ethiopia to Malawi, the 4 hours. Then on the 18th we arrived in Malawi at Lilongwe, and then we stayed at a hotel, and then on the 19th we got a pick up at midday and travelled to Chembe, Eagle's Nest. It's about a 3-hour drive down there, And then my swim window was either the 20th, 21st or 22nd of October. That's the swim side of it. From this point on, we had a bit of a bespoke stay in Malawi where we wanted to see more of the wonderful country that's not associated with the swim, safaris, and I wanted to visit the charity that I was doing the work for. But that was a further week on from we stayed there. Another key off-training preparation is the vaccinations. These may change over time and obviously individuals may vary, so I suggest everyone should check requirements in their own country. But we were recommended by a local health advisor pharmacy and had typhoid, tetanus, hepatitis B. Yellow fever was not prevalent in Malawi and was only needed if stopping over in a country that had yellow fever for more than 12 hours. Ethiopia is one of these countries, but our stopover was only 4 hours and we were not going to go outside the airport. So it was acceptable for us to have a formal certificate for yellow fever from our pharmacy. We decided not to have the rabies jabs, 3 of them, as we assessed the risk as minimal for what we were planning to do. Again, this needs to be an individual's choice. We had our injections about a month before leaving and started taking our malaria tablets 2 days before leaving. And then each day while away and for the 6 days after we returned. Not the best tablets to be taking, but better than the risk of the alternative. Next up on the administration list was accommodation. We chose to stop over for the afternoon and the night in Lilongwe because we felt 22 hours travelling and a further 3 hours journey down to Chembe would have been too much. So we stayed at a lovely hotel called Latitude 13. Very smart, with some cool artwork. But we realised it did not represent the real Africa, but was a pleasant rest following a long journey. The base camp accommodation for waiting for the swim is Chembe Eagle's Nest, run by the lovely Nita, someone who wants to make your stay perfect. It's a beautiful location, quiet beachside setting, and we would recommend one of the organised trips into the village and the town, the local one. Accommodation for the night of the swim is on Tamakinji Beach near Cape Nagobu, which, as well as being another beautiful beach setting, is also the start for the swim, with camping in tents and seeing the sunset and then the bright sky stars, a unique way to prepare for the swim the next day. The Who? Howard James is the Open Water Africa, South African-based organisation's representative of the swim. And if you check out our previous Malawi podcast, you will hear that he is very knowledgeable about the swim and many other swims within Africa. When you get to Chembe Eagle's Nest, you meet Walter Muggleton, who really is Mr. Fix-It for the swim. Walter really knows Malawi, its culture, its people, and what the swim takes. In fact, I don't think I've ever met anyone who knows the workings of a country that isn't their own as much as Walter does. He's from South Africa. I was fortunate to have many hours sat next to Walter in his 4x4 as we went around the country after the swim, and I was fascinated by the depth of history, political knowledge, and the country's changes I was able to quiz him about from his 20 years operating in Malawi. I'm sure he was glad when he was able to drop us off in Blantyre, ready for our flight home to allow him to have a rest. Walter has a vast Lake Malawi experience, having organised prestigious international sailing marathon events, and really does understand the unique challenges of the lake. The swim. Okay. Spoiler alert, not the outcome I would have wanted for the swim. But, in a way, this made the whole adventure even greater. We landed on the beach in the late afternoon and were greeted by a dozen children from the local village. We had brought with us some colouring books, pencils, pens, etc. for the children, and it was a great feeling watching them intensely and studiously colouring in the various bright coloured fish, unicorns and animals in the books and posters. A beautiful experience to take my mind off the ever-decreasing weather conditions. Warm, but windy. The weather leading up to the swim was not looking favourable, and with only a 3-day weather window for me to undertake the swim, not being able to get away and get to have a crack at the swim was a real possibility. Knowing what tough looks like from previous challenges, I knew the wind gods were not being kind for this adventure. Long discussions with Walter highlighted how difficult of a decision it was for him to agree for the swim to go ahead. There haven't been these conditions for any previous swims. I didn't want to put anyone at risk, but I felt at least needed to get the chance to battle. So, as we went to bed the night before the swim, Walter and I had a let's see agreement. During the night, the winds progressively whipped up so strong they blew the tents down we were staying in on the beach. They were unexpected, but again reinforced the unpredictability of this sport. Both Walter and I are experienced in researching wind predictions, and these conditions were not forecast. However, the reactions of Walter and his team were excellent, and we all adapted to get some sleep and rest ready for whatever adventure the next morning may bring. It remained rough the next morning, and my biggest fear that the swim might not go ahead was becoming a real reality. I kept talking it through with Walter, but I could see in his expression he wasn't sure. He'd never started or progressed to swim in anything like what we were facing. My decision was take on 4 really hard hours of swimming or forever leave Malawi undone. I couldn't afford to come back, but equally could the cost of trying be too much? I confidently said to Walter, I want to give it a go. The swim started about an hour and a half later than normal at about 7 o'clock, which meant a daylight finish was unlikely. So it all added up that it seemed unusual weather that they don't normally see in October had hit my 3-day weather window. Wednesday was my final chance. Even though the winds looked bad at the start, it was predicted to smooth off for the afternoon and continue to be calm. I felt if I could battle the 1.5 metre waves for the first 4 hours, I could then stroke it out for the rest. And so I set off. The plan was going well and my pace remained strong in both conditions. It was as tough for those on the boats with the waves. It was, however, when the sun went down and the wind started to pick up again, just as we were hitting the currents, pushing north about 4 kilometres from the finish. I still felt strong, but I knew that the weather, which again wasn't forecast, was worsening, and was concerned for Dawn and Bethan, who had been brilliant all day on the boat. The winds were increasing the pace of the current, and as they were hitting the headland, started to vortex in the bay I was trying to land in. This meant the waters were pushing me backwards, and increasing my swim stroke pace was not making any difference. I knew no matter how fresh I was, no one would be able to get through these conditions. And now pitch black with no moon. The light on the boats were becoming harder to keep a focus on, with the waves breaking my sighting. I have never called a swim in my swimming challenges, never giving myself the luxury of choice, and have been pulled from the water and hospitalised for a week on the only other swim I didn't finish. So, I'm taking the positive that it was a sign of maturity, that this time I did the right thing at the right time, and I had swum 27 kilometres in a beautiful location that many don't get the chance to swim in. Despite me being someone who pushes limits, Walter and his team had my safety as their priority and said they would have pulled the swim had I not chosen to do so. It was a tough 12-hour, brilliantly organised swim, but weather is weather. We returned to Eagle's Nest following the swim, grateful for the hospitality that they had waiting, along with a comfy bed. The next morning we continued our family holiday in a wonderful Majetti Safari Park, Nala Lodge, and then visiting the Charities Skills Centre Academy that I'd been doing the swim benefit for. So, my lessons learned. This swim is an adventure in every level, and the rewards for those willing to throw themselves into it are immense. Whether it's the logistical challenges, the beautiful animals natural to this land, the wonderful people you meet, and not least, the sage Walter Muggleton, this swim is special. It also reinforced to me that the sport is special because we are all subservient to the weather, more than the indoor version of the sport. And the uncertainty, although frustrating at times, adds a dimension and a drama to the adventure. But feel privileged you are able to have the opportunity that this sport gives. Finally, Malawi has so much more to offer than just this swim. Please don't just be the swim box ticker to get another swim off the list. So many just want to get through the lists made up by others to prove their progress. Lists never interest me. The swims and the experiences do. Please see the country, truly meet the people. It's unique and beautiful. So, thank you, Open Water Africa. Thank you, Walter Muggleton. And thank you, of course, to Lake Malawi. To capture the joy of each individual MYSWIM, we have an exclusive, bright, fun MYSWIM podcast themed artwork design. If you enjoy the podcast and the guests, we'd appreciate your support to keep these podcasts going, to help spread the knowledge to a wider community. And please check out the designs on www.myswim.uk. Let us know what you want to hear about, and together let's build the community. We really want to positively celebrate and promote all aspects of aquatics, and particularly the mental health benefits that swimming can bring, and we'd love you to be a part of it. Join the community, give us your feedback, follow, and tell us all about your individual MYSWIM.